What do you think about that? What do you think about this? You know, so that's what I was trying to do with this little thing here today, is try to kind of give you guys an idea of what it was like really back then, that really nobody will really know about except us, you know, unless we do something out here in the public that, you know, to tell them what it was like back then. You know, and the other thing really about Joe that I noticed myself, and I'm sure other guys will probably corroborate it here, is that things he did on record were really, yeah, they were great, yeah, but you know, he played stuff in the studio that was like wow, you know, why don't you record something like that, Joe? You know, you know, he played like some stuff in the studio that was just totally amazing, you know, and like it's never really been recorded, you know, and I didn't have a video camera back then, or I would have, you know, done it. Yeah, that's right, because they didn't. Well, you know, it was the Stone Age, so you know, they had wheels back then, but they were still square yet, you know, so they were trying to get it. You know. Okay, but yeah.
One thing that strikes me is that though the mechanics and the physics of this thing were fixed long before Morello was born, he kind of quantified an approach to doing things. And then, like this exercise that Steve just presented, I never saw that. So he was continually expanding his ways of applying these concepts. And I think he, you know, it wasn't a set repertoire. There was a system, but the system was always expanding based on capitalizing on the physics. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Greg, you want to say a few syllables?
My sticks? Let me take the batteries
out. You guys both have these Liberace sticks, so I didn't want to mess with them. Oh, yeah. I'm with Joe a lot. I used to study with him, and then I worked for him when I got old enough to work for him. And I was fascinated by little stick tricks that Joe would do. And I would ask him about them, and he'd laugh at me and say, I don't know what you're talking about, or I don't remember how to do it. But just a couple of them. Basic one is just right, and a little dig with the left hand, as John might say. Joe would get the stick up here to get a fuller sound, and then backwards. So, but the thing that I liked that Joe did really well was he would play four. He would play, and I'll never forget when I asked him about it. We weren't working, we just came back here to check on some things, and he sat down, and he was going to show me, and this is what I wanted to know. And he laughed at me. He said, "Why do you want to learn these folks?" So I said, "I want to learn that." And, you know, he went through some things, and I had to point. I said, "That's the one I want to learn." And he covered his mouth and started laughing at me. And I said, "What?" He says, "Well, I don't know what I'm doing." I said, "You don't know what you're doing?" Obviously, he was just kind of joking with me. But I went with the joke. I said, "Okay, slow it down." And that's what he was doing. Right, left. If you're patient with it, you can move it up to speeds that he would take it at. If you listen to some recordings, it's hard to tell exactly what he's doing, because he would move all these things together. So, you know, he had a lot of different ideas that he would do with that, and I would be fascinated. I'd watch him night after night after night when we were working, and I'd see him do all these things. And half of them were so fast, I had no idea what he was doing anyway. So, I had to get him to slow it down and figure out what it was. So, that was something that I learned from Joe.
Hi, I'm John Goddard, and I studied with Joe around 1975, and the first two people I met were Steve Forster and Danny Gottlieb. And to give you some interesting stories of what we used to do, maybe John and Steve could do this. One thing that really cracked me up is what the students would do is that we get a metronome going, and they try to play single-stroke rolls with each person doing one hand. It was hilarious. And what we would do is we would all take turns jumping in back and forth with a single-stroke roll. And you remember that? Doing any of that? That's the one thing we would do. There was a lot of it.
You weren't successful.
Yeah, it was hard to do. That's why I was going to mention it was a lot of fun.
I saw it with Joe one time in the space.
Yeah. We can do it at this tempo.
Yeah. But it was Danny Gottlieb, and it was like, you know. So that was a lot of fun. And the other thing we used to do at Dorn and Kirshner's is that sometimes Joe's drum studio would be open. There wouldn't be anybody in there. So about 4 or 5 of us, I can remember with Danny Gottlieb and Steve and Hal Lincoln Bond. Not Steve Muskus wasn't there, but what we would do is we would stand around Joe's drum set, and we'd all keep time on the cymbal, and then we would trade fours. So it was like a round robin trading fours. You have 4 or 5 guys playing on one ride cymbal, and then running around and sitting behind the set and doing a 4-bar break. And that was a lot of fun in those days. So,
actually, the reason I became aware of Joe Morello as a teacher was because of Bill. There was a Ludwig Drum Symposium in 1971 at the University of Miami, which I attended as a high school junior. And Joe Morello was there, Roy Haynes, Gary Burton. Were you there, Steve? No. Carmine Appice, a bunch of classical musicians. Roy Haynes was there. I think Alan Dawson was there, all Ludwig endorsers. And they would put on this annual drum symposium, I think twice a year, once in Chicago and once in Miami. And this went on through the 60s and into the 70s. And this was my first time kind of away from home and exposed to people from other parts of the country. And, you know, I was the best drummer in my town. But when I got down there, I discovered that there was another level. And I was overwhelmed by the playing of Roy Haynes and Joe Morello and the master classes and all of that stuff, but there was too much to digest. So the contact with Morello was kind of in passing there. But on the plane ride home, I happened to be sitting in front of Danny and Bill, and they couldn't stop practicing on the back of my plane seat. And there was a clarity and a velocity to their playing that was new to me. And so I turned around and started talking to them, and they said, well, where do you live? And I said, oh, I live in Scotch Plains. And they said, you know, Joe Morello teaches in Union. It's about 10 miles away. You should call him up for an evaluation lesson. So I called him up. I went there for an evaluation, and he said, yeah, you're going about as far as you can with the technique you're using. If you do as I prescribe, I guarantee you'll double your speed in 6 months, which was like the greatest news I'd ever heard. You know, as a 16-year-old wanting to play faster. And so I can thank you, Bill.
You got it, John. Anytime. Okay, folks, so here, you know, we try to get, we're running a little bit behind schedule. I just try to get the idea of what it was like back then, you know, with these guys. It was like such a cool thing of in camaraderie. It was like, you know, you didn't just look forward to your lesson, you looked forward to just going on any day. Because your lesson probably, if you study with Joe, and you guys that study with Joe know, if your lesson was 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, you might get it by 1 o'clock on a Friday, you know. But, you know, you'd never get it on 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. But it didn't matter because you were doing all this stuff with guys next door, and it was just such a cool thing, you know. And, like, that time was such a, you know, I mean, I was a kid and all 18 years old, but it was such a cool time because I don't think I've ever had that feeling again like that, you know, that same kind of feeling where everybody's coming in and doing their thing. Hey, John will throw something out, we'll try it, you know, we'll throw something back, he'll try that. You know what I mean? It's a give and take kind of thing. Hey, what's your speed up today? You know, it's not like we're out to get you, you know. But what's your speed up today on a triplet, left-handed triplet? 204. Okay, can you make 208? Let's give it a try, you know. And a lot of times that's how we got faster and stuff. And, you know, it was just an amazing time. So, guys, I thank you for coming up here and doing this thing. And I appreciate it.